Some of you are aware that several weeks ago, maybe a week or two before Christmas, I could not find my wallet. Yes, that tattered and torn thing that I've had since 6th grade. The dated, well-worn item that embarrasses Amy by its shabby condition. But it's functional, and I'm sentimental, so I keep it. That morning was supposed to be the start of a very busy day. I intended to be here at 8 a.m. I was going to meet up with somebody to deliver the casseroles that Tanya and Evelyn had prepared. And then that evening, we were all going to go over to Morrisview to carol to the people who live there. But I didn't want to drive all the way up here without my license, which was somewhere in my wallet. I looked everywhere. I sent Amy to drive the kids to school, and then she went to work. I looked everywhere multiple times. Jacket pockets, inside the car, in the laundry that was hanging from the night before. I looked everywhere that it should be. I called the grocery store where I'd been the night before. I reached the lost and found department and was asked, "What are you looking for?" Too upset in the moment to confront the person by the fact that they were ending that question with a preposition, I said that I was looking for my wallet. Nothing. So even though I shouldn't be driving without my license in hand, I drove myself over to the grocery store parking lot and stood out there in the freezing rain with a flashlight looking around the parking lot where I remembered having parked to see if I dropped it. And even to the, let's just say, rather unique person who shuttles the carts around at my grocery store parking lot, I looked pretty peculiar wandering around with a flashlight in this freezing rain. He asked me, "What are you looking for?" And I explained I was looking for my wallet. Nothing. In my umpteenth search of the house, there I found it, on the desk in Josh's room. Josh wasn't even home from college yet. And I put it all together and I realized that I had been folding laundry in Josh's room the night before, which is not a place that I normally fold laundry. And I had set it there when I was folding everything, and I didn't remember I'd set it there. It wasn't in the two places it always is, my pocket or my own dresser. So note to self and note to congregation, just always make sure I leave my stuff where it's supposed to be. Chances are you've had an experience like that, where you're looking for something. Maybe, hopefully, it's not as full-blown panic as looking for your wallet and all of its contents. Maybe it's something as casual as walking into a store and being spotted by the clerk as the person who clearly needs some help to find something, as I was looking for something for Amy for Christmas. And the person asked the same question. What are you looking for? Perhaps that's the searching question that visits you in those quiet moments of solitude. What are you looking for? It's the very same question that we hear Jesus ask in these verses from John that stop us in our tracks. Last week we heard Matthew's version of the baptism of Jesus. Today we hear this passage from the Gospel of John about John the Baptizer. While John there in the Jordan River. We're not told in these verses about the baptism itself. But we know that John is there preaching his heart out to anybody who would listen. And we hear that Jesus is right there in the vicinity. By this point in his ministry, John has stirred up enough interest and excitement that he's attracted followers, students, disciples of his own. And John knows that ultimately he's going to refer them to Jesus himself. At some point that will happen, and today is the day. John tells them, you know the one that I've been telling you about? You know the one that I've been preaching? Well, there he is. That guy right over there. Go on, go on. My job is done with you. So with a mix of curiosity and trepidation, anticipation and excitement, we're told that they follow Jesus. Maybe with some unspoken sadness and excitement, because they've been attached to John and now they're going to be leaving him. How long, I wonder, were they following behind in Jesus' footsteps, unnoticed? How hard did all-knowing Jesus have to restrain himself from a smirk, since, all-knowing, he knew they were following him? If we heard footsteps behind us for a while, we may have reacted differently. We may have, in fact, made sure to have our hand on our wallet or clutch our purse closer if suspicious characters were following on our trail. We may have quickened our pace or darted off to see if we could somehow shake them from our trail. Likely, unlike Jesus, we might not have paused to ask, what are you looking for? Now I know Jesus is Jesus. Jesus is above and beyond reproach. Still, am I the only one who wants to say, author of the Gospel of John, didn't you mean to say Jesus asked, for what are you looking? But in all fairness, I know that I have a place for everything, and prepositions don't belong at the end of a sentence. So it's a peculiar question that Jesus asks. And in John, as far as I know, this is the first spoken line of Jesus. To turn and ask people who haven't met him before, what are you looking for? And equally peculiar is their response. They don't answer him and say, well, we're looking for you, that's who John told us to follow, or we're looking for something else. Their response is, Rabbi, where are you staying? It's like, did something get lost on the cutting room floor? What happened in between? How does this fit? What could it possibly mean? And I don't know about anyone else here, but when I read this familiar passage again this week, I couldn't help but wonder if part of Jesus was tempted to dismiss them with a wave of the hand. Rabbi, where are you staying? What am I, a travel agent? What am I, Expedia.com? On a concrete level, they're asking Jesus, yes, where are you staying? Where are you lodging? Can we come with you? And on a whole other level, which is often the case in the Gospel of John, where are you staying? What's your stand? Where do you stand? On God, in the law, in religion, in all that matters to us. Teacher, teach us, is what they are implying, what they are communicating when they ask, where are you staying? And Jesus gives a response that's open-ended. Come and see. So much of what nourishes us in these verses are found in those two questions. What are you looking for? Where are you staying? The answers are both on the surface and on a much deeper level for all of us. Jesus knows that these two have been among John's students, his followers. He knows that they've been waiting for him. They've been looking for him. And on another level, he wants to engage that thoughtful conversation. What are you looking for? Indeed, let that be the simmering question that takes up residence in our prayerful reflection. Let it simmer like one of Jen Burke's savory soups on the stove of our conscience, on the stove of our conversations with God. This fall, I had what I consider the privilege to have been in the company of several of you for the book study as we read through the book, Jesus is the Question by Martin Copenhaver. And I genuinely appreciated not only facilitating the group, but feeling very much as though I was every bit a participant around the table as everybody else who was there. The question that Jesus poses in today's gospel, what are you looking for, was the first chapter of that book. And for me, it seemed to be the one that I kept returning to visit through every subsequent question thereafter. It's the question that our journey of faith poses. It's the question that our journey of life confronts us to respond thoughtfully. My reflection and preparation for today triggered something in my mind and sent me digging back through all of my seminary papers that I keep in the office in the manse until I found one that I'd written on the theologian Paul Tillich for my Foundations of Theology class. I sat there in the office and I read that paper for the first time, probably since I wrote it. And I read it, and I looked at it, and I said, I don't know what happened in the intervening years, but I was really smart in 2013. Of all those deep thinker theologians that we read in school, Paul Tillich spoke to me. Essentially, he said, theology matters. That is to say, our understanding of God means something when we experience the divine speaking to the pressing matters of our lives. Tillich described this whole thing that he named correlation, suggesting that all of us, on some level or another, carry anxiety, wondering if we matter, wondering where we find meaning. Tillich said that the heart of faith, the power of Christ's message, is that Christianity, our very experience of God in Jesus Christ, meets us in that very real, very vulnerable space. In fact, I went reading through it, knowing I would eventually find it. Somewhere in that paper, I had described it in a way that when Josh heard it, he said, Dad, you couldn't possibly have come up with that yourself. It is into the vortex of the human predicament that God comes. Now, if I impress Josh, then I feel like I've really done something. And if you want extra credit, you can read the rest of that one and everything else that I have stashed over there in my seminary greatest hits album. Faith, a personal encounter with God. This God who knows us and loves us as we are. Paul Tillich calls this the ultimate concern. You may or may not function at a higher level of anxiety than your average bear than I do. But Tillich's ideas still speak to all of us. We're all looking on one level or another for that personal encounter with God. That personal encounter with God in Jesus that Jesus makes known to us. The person who wrote Jesus is the Question put it so beautifully. What is the object of our heart's longing? what will satisfy us? What we long for is to have the broken and scattered pieces brought together in ways that we are unable to do on our own. The empty space in our soul that is God-shaped can only be filled by God. Today's gospel speaks to the disciple in all of us, however curious, eager, excited, or anxious we may be. We may feel any and all of those things as we go about our looking, our seeking, our searching. All of us have those lonely and broken places in our lives. Lonely and broken places that yearn for healing, that yearn to be filled. George Sand put it this way: there is only one joy in life, to love and be loved. So let's keep looking. And when we find it, let's shout it for all to hear.